Hello everyone, welcome back to the studio. Today we're going to do a little bit of a voiceover because I decided to shorten this video because there's a lot of stuff that was just repetitive. But here I'm showing you some pictures from a trip to Monterey that my daughter and I made on a road trip. And there's my silly daughter. She's making those eyes with me. That's the cannery area. I'm sure many of you have been there. And I've decided to go ahead and I'm using paper from the Cape Cod collection. That's that striped paper right there. And then I've lined my pages with blueberry and then the dark blue behind the white. And then I'm using the blueberry here to go ahead and ink 3 sides of that striped paper. And the reason being only 3 is I'm going to line them up in the center, as you'll see here in a minute, on both pages so it looks continuous across the pages. And I believe it looks like maybe I've cut them down to 11 inches on each side. Here, or in height, here I'm just lining up the pictures, and again I've lined these, I think it was with blueberry as a mat. I'm just trying to make sure they all fit and then I'm happy with their placement. I did use the Cape Cod SVG files on this. I can't tell you how much I'm appreciating those. I believe they're like $9.95, something like that, and you get so many options in there. This is a texture stamp I'm using, and in the end you don't end up seeing it a lot, but I kept this in because I think it's important for you to see different generations of stamping. And there I'm just kind of rubbing off any manufacturing leftover dust, if you will, on the stamp. Here I'm doing a first generation stamping, and then we're going to come in with a second, and then a second and a third somewhere at some point. So I'm trying to figure out how dark I want this to be. And you'll see that I hold the picture where I want it, and then I'm coming in with a second generation stamping, I believe there, which just means it's the second time I stamped without re-inking my stamp. And I think it's looking pretty good there. Again, I'm not quite sure what I'm doing the rest of the page. I just know I want some texture on the page. This is the Toffee ink, and I'm wanting it to kind of resemble sand, driftwood, that type of thing. And then I'm coming in with another texture stamp that I want to look like sand. And again, I'll have all of these listed below for you. And I just kind of keep stamping. I want a little bit more there, and I really don't want to see a real strict line at the bottom of that, so that's why I'm doing multiple stampings kind of all over each other. So now this is one of the die cuts that came, oh no, excuse me, I did the cutting on this one on my own. Made this little flag here, or banner, whichever you want to call it. And I'm just trying to lift up that picture very carefully to see if I can get that flag underneath there. And I do like it, so I'm taping it back down. And you'll see that's the opposite side of that striped paper there. I'm committing. Ugh. Any of you else panic when you decide to lay it down? Like it's there forever, for the most part. And those are some flags there that were in the die cuts with the Cape Cod collection. And if you have some other papers and you don't have this collection, those would be easily, you could cut. And I'm just kind of inking up the edges with some toffee ink. And then you're going to come see, oh lordy. The little round circle that I'm using now is a starfish that was a die cut off of the sticker pages that came with this collection. And what I do when I use the stickers is I'll often bring in the anti-static powder so they don't stick anymore, and I can kind of move them around and play with them. Here are some beach, I guess the right term would be a fence, and those were in the SVGs. Here I'm using, and I love these things, I'm going to link them down for you below. There's some very, very thin 3D sticky tabs, if you will. And those are great also when you're using any shaker pockets. That's something that every crafter I feel should have in their stash. And here I had an SVG of a crab, and I've inked that up, and there's like 3 different layers, and I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with these. And all of these were SVGs that I'm using right now. So I cut those out of toffee paper, and then I'm actually inking them up darker on the sides with toffee just to give them some dimension. And this little crab, I'm coming in with some Bluebird on the sides before I ink them all up. And then you'll see here in a few minutes I decide to go even farther with playing with these. I love this craft mat that I have. You can just wipe it off and play all around with it, and you can't get all of your stuff all over the place, and it works really well. Really well. I've had that for years. So here I'm layering up Mr. Crab, and I'm just going to kind of dry fit all of this still. I know I want to use it, but until the very end I don't want to make a commitment. There's reverse tweezers. Love those. I think I have 3 pairs just in case anything disappears off my desk or is buried under all of my supplies, which happens often. Those non-stick scissors over to my right, those are imperative too when you're cutting anything sticky like the 3D foam dots. They work beautifully. Here I'm coming in with some Stickles. This is a color I've never used before, so let's see if I can do this without hurting myself. In the end, I do end up stabbing myself. Be careful in your craft room, it's dangerous. So, trying to decide what color, and in the end it's this one. And you're going to have to forgive me, but I have found sometimes on these it's best to use my fingers, especially when you're dealing with something really fragile. And it just works out for me to do it this way. It just does. So 1 down, put a little bit of sparkle there on my crab. And these do take a few minutes to dry, so when you're planning, plan for the time that it takes for those to set aside and dry. Usually like a half hour, I'll let those sit and dry. Now I'm putting in this little grass. This was on the SVG file. Now I'm coming over to the other side. I've cut out 3 layers behind there, and the paper that's behind there, it's hard to see, but you'll see it in the pictures afterwards. Behind the Monterey is a wood paper, so it looks like a wood sign that you would see at the beach, pretty weathered. And the Monterey is only 1 layer. It's the background that's 3, and those I made up myself on Cricut. This is a seahorse. That is part of the SVGs. And what I love again about the SVGs is you can manipulate them any way you want. You make them any color you want. You can make them any size you want. You can eliminate parts if you don't want it. So I love these SVGs. Here I'm coming in with Bluebird just to have some definition on the page. You'll notice that I can't get right in the center of his tail, and I'm okay with that. It just, again, you'll see in the still shots afterwards, it's just enough to make it stand out from the page and have some definition and contrast. And then I'm going to come back in with that good old, the tool that God gave us, our hands. And ink this guy up, not ink this guy, but just put some shimmer on him. And this little seahorse turns out really, really fun. The sparkle on him is just great. And I end up adding that to, I think all 3 of those. Okay, here we go. Now we're going to add in the rest of these pages here. Not pages, excuse me, but pictures. I love these pictures of our trip. Bring back lots of memories. So now it's time to put this side together, and I use quite a few of the SVG files, and then I also go into Cricut and their design space and use some of the items there. I've used Capri on this part here, and also Bluebird Cardstock from Close to My Heart. And I'm trying to just hide that hole there, so I'm gluing those two items together. I figure it would be easier to do that than to try and match it up once it's down on the page. And I think, yep, I'm pointing to where I want to come in with that sand type texture, and I ink it up quite a bit here. And you'll see this in the still shots at the end. I ended up just kept adding. I would bring back in the chair and it wasn't quite right, so I would just keep adding on to that. And in the end, I'm very happy with how that turned out. The Toffee ink is just perfect for this type of thing. And it definitely looks like sand. And then I'm coming in with the Bluebird, and I'm going to add some definition on to that beach chair there. It needed something. It was just too much of that solid Capri color, so that Bluebird just helped it stand out. Then here are one of the stickers slash die cuts from the whole collection. And I'm trying it out there. I like it, but you'll see that I end up doing something to it. Here I'm kind of dry fitting to see what looks good right there. That is a die cut that I'm bringing in just to look at. That was a sticker on the set. This grass is part of the SVG file, and I'm trying to figure out if I like that or not. In the end, I think it works. Bring in a couple more shells I have die cut. So now I'm going to come in and do some more inking up. Again, I'm using Toffee on Toffee. So the cardstock is Toffee, the ink is Toffee from Close to My Heart. And it ends up drying slightly lighter, as you kind of see from that sand dollar up above. Here I've got a starfish. It's part of the SVGs again. Inking that up just a little. And another one of the starfishes. And I think this is one of the layers on the starfish, and I'm just using it separate and not as a layer. It has a few cuts in it. Adding on some stickles again. Pardon me. Anyone else suffer from allergies? I try my best to not be sniffly on the videos, but sometimes it's hard to avoid. So I've inked up now the sticker slash die cut from the set, and it looks so much better on the page. I really like how it stands out. So here I'm getting things, I put some 3D dots on that little sign. And we're going to tape all this up now and make a commitment. I'm using some tape and some glue. Don't need a lot on this. So now I've put down the sign, chair, umbrella, the little, the brown sign on the chair. Now I'm putting in 1,000 3D foam dots on my sign. This sign is high enough to reach heaven, as I say. Between the 3 different layers on the background that I have, and then, you know, the actual blue part that says Monterey, and then now the 3D foam dots. It has a lot of dimensions. It looks good, but it's definitely up there. So now we're back to committing to the other side of the page. We're back to the left-hand side. And gluing everything down and putting some 3D foam dots on there. In the end, I think this is one of my favorite pages. I think it just resembles the whole feeling that we had for that day, and you know, it was just a beautiful day in Monterey. You'll see my daughter there sitting on a piece of driftwood on the beach, and again, we're both photographers, so we love being out in nature and catching things on our cameras. So I think that page is probably done. I decide to leave some of that open space there to the right. Sometimes I just feel like you need a place to have your eyes rest and not have so much on a page. So here we have the finished pages. It's hard to get both of the pages on one screen, but I hope you subscribe and like, and after this video you'll see the still shots. Thanks for joining me.